Hi everyone, Mike, Aston 2209. I've got a problem with the air conditioning, which is worrying because I only just had it done 2.5 years ago when I got just after I got the car, a new compressor and a new condenser radiator fitted. So I'm just got the slam panel off, as you can see, and I'm just checking out what the problems might be. Got somebody coming to do a proper gas check and everything in a few days' time. But while I'm here, I recall seeing from someone a comment about air horns. So just while I'm here, I'm just probably about to access mine, because what I'm trying to do is remove this section here, which I've got the 4 screws out going across, and it's now loose, with a view to taking this panel out. It's a plastic panel, to have a better look at the bottom of my condenser radiator. What I did was I noticed at the time when the new radiator had been fitted that this panel was actually touching the mesh or the vents of the radiator. So you can see down here I put myself a small piece of foam in there just to stop it rubbing on it and vibrating against it and wearing it away. So I'm going to try and get this panel out completely to check out if there has been a problem down here, but in doing so, to ease getting this out, and you can look inside, there's an oil cooler pipe there, and lo and behold, the 2 horns are there. So for anybody with a problem with the horn, I'm just about to actually take them out. I'm not saying I'll have resolve the problems that you might have with your horn, but this will be a good way of showing you how to actually get them out of the car to carry out some checks. So there's one screw here which I've partially got undone. Looks like it's the only thing that actually holds the whole horn assembly onto the car. It's a M10 or 10mm spanner. So I'll just finish getting it out and come back when I've got the horns out, and it may be useful information for someone else. Right, I've now, by pulling back the panel, which is quite easy, it's plastic, it moves away quite easily, I've now extracted the air horns. They're mounted through a bolt into this aluminium machined Aston Martin extravaganza of a bracket, and ends up with a connector here which could be removed. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it because mine works, so I'm not going to do anything with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I need it out of the way so I can get at my cover here. That's where the horn lives, down in there. Okay, and now I have the offending piece of plastic out of the way, and I've put back on the air horns into their particular mounting. So what have we learnt? Well, we've learnt that Aston Martin seemed to think that a piece of plastic covering needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts, which is a bit excessive. To be quite honest, I think you could do away with all the bottom ones. In fact, I was a bit naughty and pull them out of the respective bolts. The option to that was to start dismantling the whole grill to get at them. When I put them back, I'm going to trim this one around here, likewise on this side, just trim it around, and then I'm going to leave these two in case I do need to actually bolt it, dependent upon what it's like when the wind gets behind it. The whole thing, when it is unbolted, just lifts vertically upwards. Yes, graze the knuckles as well. So now I've got this into this position, I can see that down there's quite a bit of stuff off the radiator, chaff. I'll get that all sucked out, and then when the guy comes to do the repair or check it, he should have some good access. I've just seen something that's worrying me. Now look at the discoloration there. On the radiator body, on the side of the radiator. Let me put my light down. I can point it out. Is that wet, or have I just been rubbing it with my fingers? Let's just polish off a little bit below it. Let's move the light so it's a bit better. Right. It might be that this at the top here is just where I've rubbed up against it when I've been working, because this radiator is no more than a couple of years old. In fact, now I look at it closer, it's just the paint, I think, just where the paint's been rubbed. I thought it was evidence of weepage. Having said that, the gas that goes in here would evaporate, I guess, so it's not likely to be that. But there's no evidence of any corrosion or damage that I can see. No damage to the grills, the vents, the fins that keep it or do the cooling. No evidence at all. So we'll wait and see what the AC man says when he comes and he puts his testing rig on it, and we'll see if we've got a leak, a specific leak, which he fears, because he says at 2.5 years since it was done, it shouldn't really be leaking so soon. But he'll put a dye test on it, UV dye, and then we'll see wherever we might be leaking, if we are indeed. AC systems should be run regularly, and this is always switched on, whether it's summer or winter, so it shouldn't be that it hasn't been run. So this piece can go back down there when I've just fettled the holes. Cut that off, leave that one, cut that off, and then it should be easy to get out next time. Okay, I'll continue this video when the AC man comes. Okay, so what we're looking at now is the compressor from underneath the car. I'll just back down a bit so you can see and get a bearing. And the compressor, according to Damien, has leaks in this area here, which is where the end seals are, or the end seal on here. If you rub it, he says there are traces of oil which he believes are from the compressor. As the gas escapes, it takes a little bit of the oil with it. I mean, it looks quite clear, but when you get it under the UV lamp, it stands out. You can see the dye, so there definitely is some sort of leak there. It is reasonably accessible, not an easy job, but something I could change. So we'll see, first of all, how it goes on now it's been regassed, and take it from there. If it lasts through into the spring, I'd be amazed, but if it does, then all well and good. A job for next year. But failing that, if it just lasts 2 or 3 months now, through the main summer, it still makes it a job for next year, because we don't use it much, if at all, over the winter, other than to stir it once a week, just to make sure that everything's working okay, which is what you should do. Hi everyone. Right, Damien, the gas man, has been, and it's a little bit of a tale of woe, really. He believes that at some point the system, the air conditioning system, has had a sealant used with it. And the reason he thinks that is, although I've got a new condenser radiator, which is this animal, and I have a new compressor, it's 2.5 years since both of those were fitted, and he says, quite categorically says, that no way should we be losing gas already. He's checked the radiator here, the condenser. He says there are traces here where the connections are of dye, which is in all systems, and you can see that on his UV torch when he shines the light at it. He doesn't believe that is leaking. He believes that is residual dye from when the radiator was installed off the guy, of his hands, the guy who was installing it, and he doesn't think there's a problem with the condenser connections. However, the compressor is showing signs of a very thin film of oil on the body of the outside underneath, and the compressor has oil in it and the refrigerant, obviously, that it is pumping around, and as the refrigerant leaks out, it can take some of the oil with it. We're talking microscopic amounts, but over time it builds up. What he believes is that the sealant itself actually clogs up, for want of a better expression, the pipe work, the fins of the radiator, the condenser, and elements of the internals on the compressor, to the extent that the new compressor is working harder than it should be. It's working at a higher pressure, and then that results in the seals of the compressor starting to leak, and he's shown me that there is evidence of a path of dye from the front pulley end seal of the compressor. So he says that it can be a few reasons for running like this. One is overfilling, if it's been overfilled when it was filled when the compressor and radiator were put in, the condenser were put in. Or it could have been that a sealant has been used. Now, when I bought the car, I bought it from a dealer in London. He was going to get a service done, oil change, etc. And I needed to pick it up a week after I actually bought it to allow him time to do this service. Now the problem then came about that the air conditioning wasn't working, so he asked me to leave it with him another week. The suspicion is that rather than pay for a new compressor or a new radiator, condenser radiator, that he's had somebody put a sealant in it, which gets by for a short period. And sure enough, about 3 months after I got it, the AC stopped working. So I got back in touch with him and arranged, he agreed in the end, arranged for him to send me a new condenser radiator, which actually came direct from Aston as an OEM part, and a compressor, a new compressor, which turned out to be a reconditioned compressor. Still worked, still fine, but Damien suggests that there will be residual sealant in the system, and he thinks that that is still having an impact on the efficiency and the operation of the compressor, making it work harder, making it pump at higher pressure. So it's possible that that is the case, and that effectively the compressor itself is blowing out its own seal. It's blowing the end seal of the compressor itself, where it is where the drive pull is mounted. Damien says that the amount of gas and oil that's leaking out will be almost not detectable, but over time it will be detectable, and that's potentially what's happened. We're 2.5 years down the road now since the reconditioned compressor was fitted and the new condenser radiator was fitted, so it seems reasonable that over that length of time the gas has finally gone. So how do we go forward? Well, Damien's refilled it, regassed it, and we're just going to watch what happens. We're going to take a few weeks or maybe a couple of months or whatever and see if it still seems to be performing okay. If it goes through to next year and through next summer and it's still okay, then maybe I just get it gassed up every year or every other year. Alternatively, I might be up for a new compressor. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's a waiting game. So I hope this has been useful for anybody with problems with their AC. I'm not saying we've solved anything, because really we haven't, but at least you've seen where the parts are, and got perhaps something to look out for with your own air conditioning. And if you're starting having problems, just think back in the history to see if there's anything that might have been done to the AC unit before you got the car. Okay,